We better ship the slot back before we upset Darwin. Now, everybody, grab a dodo.
The Island of Mauritius, an island in the Indian Ocean well known for its biodiversity of animals and plants. Today, this island is considered a major tourist spot and the star of the Indian Ocean. But around 500 years ago, this great paradise was home to one of the oddest birds in the animal kingdom. At 2.5 feet in height and weighing at approximately 10 kilograms, this flightless bird, once originally considered to be a myth, would later be popularly known as the mascot of extinct species and falsely the clumsiest of all animals. This bird would be one of the earliest examples of human-driven extinction. This was Raphus Cucullatus, otherwise known as the Dodo Bird. Unlike previous animals covered on Epoch Now, the dodo bird's discovery is a bit of a mystery. The first potential records of dodo sightings were purported by the Dutch when they first sailed to Mauritius in 1598. At the time, they would call it wavogel, meaning tasteless bird. This term was first mentioned by Dutch Vice Admiral Wybrand van Warwick, possibly in reference to the fact that when the Dutch first arrived at the island, they were in poor condition and desperate for resources, and would oftentimes consume these birds for food. The same account also claims that the Portuguese, who many have thought were actually the first to discover the dodo, would consider dodos as penguins due to the term fotocaios, which is in reference to their small wings. Additionally, it is entirely possible that the Arabs had been visiting the island well before the Portuguese and the Dutch. However, there is no recorded evidence of a contact between them and the dodo bird at this time. During this time, written mentions and artist renditions were the only plausible evidence of the bird's existence. Unfortunately, renditions of the animal's anatomy varied wildly depending on each individual illustration, thus making it puzzling as to what this bird really looked like. Though, from these depictions, it was shown to have had brownish-gray plumage with a tuft of tail feathers, yellow feet, and a uniquely shaped beak that was potentially used for territorial disputes. Additionally, the dodo was a genus of flightless bird, to which they possessed small wings, and it is now believed to have utilized them for display. The dodo was also described as having an awkwardly shaped body. The historical restorations portray the dodo as a clumsy, almost pudgy animal. These restorations at the time would give the dodo its infamous image of being a rather ignorant creature. The term dodo itself even possibly originated from the Dutch word dodor, which means sluggard. However, it is more likely related to another Dutch term, that being dodar, which means not arse, referring to the tuft of feathers on its hindquarters. The Portuguese, on the other hand, have a different origin for the name dodo, as it is suggested that they would call it daudo, or currently doido, which means fool or crazy. This rather unflattering association possibly arose because of the interpretation that settlers had of the bird's behavior when they began interacting with them. There is also another claim as to the origin of the bird's name, based on the two-note calls the bird would make. English writer Sir Thomas Herbert would begin to use the word dodo in his publication of his 1634 travelogue. It would be this travelogue that would also describe the dodo in the best details possible, though other depictions have been recovered from ship logs. One in particular, a Dutch ship called Gelderland, rediscovered in 1860, would contain sketches of dodos that were known to be living or recently killed. The dodo, when encountered by Dutch settlers in 1602, were written to have been hunted down as a food source. In 1648, an illustration made in a travel journal would depict the killings of dodos, as well as dugongs and potentially the mascarene gray parakeet. Some dodos were considered unsavory to travelers, while others would conclude that while the meat was tough, it was acceptable. Some would prefer to hunt dodos simply for their gizzards, which they considered to be the best part of the bird. Settlers claimed that it was incredibly easy to capture or hunt a dodo. However, they still had to remain careful since the dodo had a considerably powerful bite. Like most animals that evolved in isolation, the dodo had no natural predators on Mauritius, thus meaning that when the settlers did arrive on the island, dodos showed no fear to the newcomers. However, this fearlessness and inability to fly ended up making the dodo bird easy prey for these new hunters. Some reports would describe mass killings of the animal. However, archaeological investigations disagree on this claim since evidence of human predation on the dodo was surprisingly rare. Bones of at least 2 specimens were found in the caves of Baie de Cap, a cave that sheltered fugitive slaves and convicts of the 17th century. While the human population of Mauritius never exceeded 50, other animal species would be introduced to the island through the settlers. Animals like dogs, cats, pigs, rats, and even crab-eating macaques would be known to raid dodo nest and limit the bird's food resources. To top it all off, human interaction would increase as deforestation would be a common activity, causing the dodo's habitat to decrease significantly. In 2005, an expedition in search of more subfossil material for the dodo would suggest that the dodo bird may have already been in low population when the settlers first arrived to Mauritius, since evidence suggests that the dodo, as well as other inhabitants, experienced a flash flood, resulting in a mass mortality. It is unclear as to when the dodo went extinct. However, the most widely accepted last sighting was in 1662, reported by shipwrecked mariner Volkert Everts. He described the birds on a small inlet which is believed to be Amber Island. More alleged sightings would suggest later dates of the dodo's expiration, like one record by Isaac Johannes Lemodius from 1688. In 2003, a statistical analysis of the records by David L. Roberts and Andrew R. Solo resulted in a new estimate on the extinction date for the dodo of sometime around the year 1693, with a 95% confidence interval. Later in 2014, A.S. Czech rediscovered Dutch manuscripts indicating that no dodos were seen on Mauritius during the period between 1664 to 1674. In 2020, another study was done by Czech and Julian C. Parrish and suggested that all sightings or mentions of the dodo after the mid-17th century were possibly referring to red rails, and that the dodo itself had gone extinct due to predation by feral pigs during a hiatus in settlement around 1658 to 1664. In the end, 1662 would be regarded as the last time anyone ever saw a dodo alive in the wild, suggesting that they would unknowingly become extinct due to multiple factors. As stated earlier, the dodo, also known by its scientific name Raphus Cucullatus, stood at around 62.6 to 75 centimeters or 2.5 to 2.46 feet in height, and had a weight of 10.6 to 17.5 kilograms or 23 to 39 pounds. However, some estimates go up to as high as 22 kilograms or 50 pounds, making this flightless bird a rather heavy animal when compared to similar island-dwelling flightless birds alive today, such as the kakapo, though still far smaller than flightless island dwellers such as the moa of New Zealand, or the elephant bird of Madagascar. Additionally, Raphus was actually a sexually dimorphic genus, meaning that there would have been a size variation between the males and the females, with the males being roughly 20% larger than the females by weight, while also having proportionally larger beaks. It is also commonly believed that the Raphus is the largest member of its family, though its close relative, Rodriguez solitaire, has been actually estimated to have potentially been even larger.
Well, if it walks like a dodo, walks like a dodo, scratches like a dodo.
As for what family that was exactly, Raphus is a member of the family known as Columbidae, which is a very prominent family of birds that we commonly call pigeons today, which first appeared at the beginning of the Miocene epoch with DNA sequences suggesting a late Cretaceous origin. And yes, that makes the dodo bird a flightless pigeon. The Columbidae family is a massive family of birds comprising many different subfamilies, such as the family Columbinae, which includes the modern-day rock pigeon. As for the subfamily that Raphus itself resides in, it can be found in the similarly named Raphinae family, which gets its name from the dodo. Within Raphinae, the closest living relative of Raphus is actually a species called Colonus nicobarcia, otherwise known as the Nicobar pigeon, that lives on and around the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in India. As for the closest extinct relative of Raphus, that would end up being the previously mentioned Rodriguez solitaire. However, this is not the actual scientific name of the animal, as that is actually Pezophaps solitaria. The reason for this discrepancy is due to the fact that Rodriguez solitaire is actually just the common name for the animal and references the island it was found on. The island of Mauritius, where the dodo resided, has a maritime subtropical climate, which means that it receives a large amount of rainfall and less variation in season changes compared to some other islands like the nearby Rodriguez. Because of this, the environment for the Raphus had a large abundance of resources, leading the animal to not express aggressive territorial behavior. While the preferred habitat for Raphus is unknown, old depictions suggest that it lived in forested areas within the drier coastal areas of the southern to western ends of Mauritius. This was supported through the large amounts of excavated remains of Raphus being found within the Mer Aux Song swamps, located close to the sea in southeastern Mauritius. In fact, this limited distribution is theorized to have contributed to its extinction. Further work in the swamps have also shown that Raphus' environment was dominated by Tambalacoque and Pandanus trees, along with endemic palms. The near coastal placement and wetness of Mer Aux Songs led to high diversification in plant species, while other surrounding areas were drier. After the arrival of humans, many of the island's endemic fauna became extinct, leaving the island ecosystem badly damaged and difficult to reconstruct. Many of the forests are now lost due to deforestation. But before that, however, Mauritius would have been entirely covered in these forests that Raphus inhabited. Other species of bird that would have lived alongside Raphus would be the flightless red rail, the broad-billed parrot or raven parrot, mascarene gray parakeet, the Mauritius blue pigeon and Scops owl, mascarene coot, the Mauritian shell duck, a species of shelled goose, the Mauritian duck, and the Mauritius night heron. Species of reptiles would include the saddle-backed Mauritius giant tortoise, the domed Mauritius giant tortoise, Mauritius giant skink, and the round island burrowing boa. The island also included a snail called Tropidophora. All of these animals that lived alongside Raphus are now declared or presumed to be extinct, except for a species of megabat called the Mauritius flying fox. As for what the diet of Raphus would have been, it is mentioned in a rediscovered 1631 Dutch letter that their food was raw fruit. To add to this, Raphus did feast upon fallen fruits, nuts, seeds, bulbs, and roots. It is also suggested that Raphus may have eaten small crabs and shellfish, similar to their relatives, the crowned pigeon. Due to Mauritius's varied wet and dry seasons, Raphus may have also fattened itself on ripe fruits at the end of the wet season in order to survive through the dry season. When times were tough, it has been described that Raphus had a sort of greedy appetite. With this variety of food source, both small and hard items, the beak of Raphus was strong enough to withstand hard force loads, which indicates a diet of hard foods. Some sources state that Raphus may have also swallowed small digestion stones called gastroliths. The most prominent report was from Sir Hamon L. Estrange, who claims to have witnessed a live Raphus in captivity when in London in 1638. He describes the bird's keeper giving stones to the animal, which then swallowed them. As for Raphus young, it is suggested by looking towards related pigeons that these birds may have given a secretion from the lining of a parent bird's crop called crop milk. It is also estimated that the maximum size attained by this bird may have been limited by the amount of crop milk it could provide to their young. The dodo bird today is an extremely popular animal, as it often represents the concept of extinction, and it was first depicted in pop culture in 1915, 253 years after its last confirmed sighting in the original Alice in Wonderland novel. It would then make its second appearance in Looney Tunes' Porky and Wacky Land in 1938.
I got the last of the dodos. Yes, I'm really the last of the dodos. Ain't I, fellas?
Yeah!
Followed by another appearance in Alice in Wonderland, this time a movie, in 1951. The dodo would next appear in 1960 as a part of the Flintstones and would appear throughout the franchise going forward. Following this, it would make an appearance in the 1985 Sesame Street movie called Sesame Street: Follow That Bird. The dodo bird would make its first big appearance in a documentary in the year 2001 in episode 1 of the show known Extinct. It would then make its next major appearance in 2002 in the hit film Ice Age. The dodo birds would then become reoccurring characters throughout this particular franchise, returning for many movies.
There goes our last female.
After this, the dodo would go on to be featured in the 2007 British television drama Primeval, in episode 4 called Dodo Madness, where a flock of dodos would be transported into the present via an anomaly. But before all of them could be returned, one dodo would be captured and unleash a deadly parasite onto an unsuspecting victim. Also in 2007, it would make an appearance in the video game Zoo Tycoon 2: Extinct Animals as one of the many extinct creatures you could add to your zoo. Along with that, the popular 2007 Disney animated series Phineas and Ferb would feature the dodo in the show's opening, but it would gain a larger appearance in the 2011 episode Last Train to Bustville. Its next movie appearance would be in 2012 in the movie Pirates: A Band of Misfits as the character Polly. Following this, it would appear in the mobile app Jurassic Park Builder in 2013. Its next documentary appearance, the first since 2001, would be in 2014 in the David Attenborough documentary Natural History Museum Alive.
A dodo bird!
That same year, it would also be featured in the TV show Wild Kratts, as well as the video game Ice Age Adventures. The next year, in 2015, it would feature prominently in the survival game Ark Survival Evolved. It would then appear next, in the year 2017, in the sequel game to Jurassic Park Builder, Jurassic World the Game, and then in 2021, another Jurassic World game, that being Jurassic World Alive. Its most recent appearance would be in the 2024 animated TV series based off the 2015 game Ark Survival Evolved, known as Ark the Animated Series, as one of the first animals that the main character Helena tames.
They're cloning them.
Yeah, but why would they clone a flightless bird?
What would you start with, Dunk?
T-Rex?
Typically in our Epoch Now videos, this is where we would end off the video by discussing how a particular animal may have gone extinct. However, because the dodo is an animal whose discovery is closely tied to its extinction, we ended up covering that particular topic back in History of Discovery. So instead, we will cover attempts to turn back time and actually bring the dodo bird back from extinction. De-extinction is known as resurrection-based biology, which involves methods and processes to revive an extinct species by generating an organism that's similar to the previous one. This concept involves various ways to replicate a long-forgotten species. One that's the most popular is cloning. Cloning itself has succeeded before in 1996 when associates at Roslin Institute in Scotland cloned a female Finn Dorset sheep from an adult somatic cell through the process of nuclear transfer. This particular sheep would famously be known as Dolly. Later in 2003, cloning would once again be taken to the next step when scientists would utilize cloning technology to attempt to resurrect an extinct animal for the first time. The Pyrenean ibex was a subspecies of extant Iberian ibex that went extinct in the year 2000. However, using the method of transferring the nuclei cells into domestic goat egg cells, they were able to clone the subspecies through impregnating 208 female goats. However, only one ibex managed to be born alive, and unfortunately, to make matters worse, it had a lung defect, preventing it from taking in oxygen, leading to its demise just 7 minutes later. While not an amazing outcome, it still represents the first ever resurrection of an extinct animal in history. Many years of brainstorming and discussion later, the idea to resurrect species arose once again through a company that plans to de-extinct many of the fauna that is now lost to Earth. Founded by Ben Lamb and biotech founder George Church, Colossal Biosciences plans to bring back the dodo as one of the many species they anticipate to resurrect, such as the woolly mammoth, which is famous for having large amounts of uncovered genetic material. Under the leadership of Beth Shapiro and the collaboration with the University of Copenhagen, a team was able to do the seemingly impossible by sequencing and assembling the dodo's genetic information from DNA extracted from a skull specimen in the Natural History Museum of Denmark. Reviving the dodo will take many characters from the ecological stage to perform the best possible and closest outcome to creating a similar species. With that said, Colossal intends to proceed with this plan by selecting the closest living relative to the dodo as a resource for providing host cells, that being the Nicobar pigeon, both with genetic insights from the dodo's closest genetic relative, that being Rodriguez solitaire. Compounded with these methods, the final process will determine who gets to parent the new dodo species, that being the common domestic chicken, which could result in a major breakthrough in conservation of threatened pigeon species. Colossal is also planning to ensure that what happened to the dodo previous in the 17th century doesn't happen again by intending to partner with the Mauritius government in conservation of habitat and rewilding of the new dodo species. Raphus Cucullatus was a fascinating bird with a remarkable history. Hailing from a family of birds that have been around since before the extinction of the dinosaurs, this incredible animal nearly made it to the modern day. And while the story of its demise is indeed one of tragedy, its revival could potentially be one of triumph. Though even today, while the world still lacks this now far-gone creature, its legacy is that of an animal so commonly associated with extinction that it inspires us today to fight for what we still have, while we still can, and prevent any other animals from going the way of the dodo. And who knows, maybe one day, far off into the future, the mascot of extinct animals may one day walk the beaches of Mauritius again. So for Raphus Cucullatus, the Ballad of the Dodo may not yet be over. Perhaps extinction doesn't have to be forever. Thank you all for watching our video about the mascot of extinction itself, Raphus Cucullatus, aka the dodo. We put a lot of work into this video and hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. This video was directed and narrated by myself, TheDinosaurHunter, scripted by myself and the Primal Earth, edited by myself, SpinoDragon145, CrimsonAcro, RangoGamer, and the Primal Earth. and the graphic designers for this video were Straight Up Murph and myself. The video was researched by myself and the Primal Earth. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. If you want to see more of our videos, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you have suggestions for future videos, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.